Good evening. It's March 19th, the workshop session. The majority of our agenda tonight is budget, but we do have an executive session to seek advice of counsel and discuss potential threatened litigation. And so I'd make a motion to enter executive session. And Mike, if you like, I can ping you when we're out. Would someone like to make a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, he's there.
I don't.
Hey. Ready? So, we had an executive session regarding potential litigation. At the beginning of our meeting, I made a motion to exit executive session. Eliza seconded it. And we voted unanimously to exit that closed session. So, any announcements?
Actually, I do.
Go ahead.
I will put out a flyer, but in the meantime, the Earth Day Fest is April 26th at Boscobel, 10 to 1, alongside the farmers market. And the Climate Smart Task Force is one of the sponsors. So add it to your calendars.
What's the date?
April 26th.
No,
The
the
same
date-
time as the normal farmers market, but it's along their like Maple LA, and it's like a really great community event.
And I think that there is tree committees doing something for Arbor Day the day before.
Okay.
Opportunity to add or modify the agenda. Michelle has requested a slight rearranging of our budget discussion so that we do the executive session first and then move on to general fund and water and wastewater. Are you cool with that?
Yes.
Approval of Jewel Extension Memorandum Agreement. Laura, tell us about this.
Well, this is what we discussed
Last week.
So again, it's continuing our existing, sort of enabling us to continue our existing contract.
It's, for authorization for me to sign, right?
Yep.
Someone like to make a motion?
It's just for a number of months, right?
Yep. So this is like the authorizing to say that to facilitate the amendment, and then the amendment will come. But it's the energy stuff is very like in the moment, so you can't do things very far in advance. So kind of prepping us for that. So I authorize the mayor to sign the approval of the Jewel Extension Memorandum of Understanding.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, what happens next? Next is the Knights of Columbus Annual Easter Egg Hunt has been requested for the 12th of April, 19th for rain and snow date. It's the usual 8:30 to 11. I'm sorry, 8:30 to 1:15. They're asking to use McConville Park with the event running from 11 to 1. The officer in charge, who I think is on the call, and the event coordinator have not connected on this, so my recommendation would be that we approve it pending his sign off. It's the same event as always.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So Matt, Lillian will get with you about, I think he sent you an email to follow up. Okay, the next item I would like to ask the table, it's docking from Sleep Clearwater, and I tried to get in touch with Mr. De La Cruz for more information and haven't been able to. They're looking to dock for 5 days straight, and then again on a single date, April 28th to May 5th, and then again May 11th, and for educational events. But I'm trying to get clear on what that means. Are they bringing school buses down and loading kids on and off? Like, what's the length of time? And yeah, just to understand better, I'd like to table it. unless anyone has an objection.
Nope.
Okay,
Would be good.
so I'll make a motion to table, somebody second it.
Second.
Favor. So I'll let you know what I find out.
Executive session number 2.
Executive session number 2. Yes, so, yep, we're gonna be talking personnel, so I would make a motion to enter executive session to discuss employment of individuals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mike will shut off and then come back. Good night, Jackson. Honey.
We also, for LoSAP, I had increased the revenue, so I also now increased the expense side. I made minor miscellaneous salary adjustments of, 1,500. I reduced the attorney contractual line. I reanalyzed, the average monthly spend over the past couple of fiscal years. And I do think that it can come down a little bit. One of the reasons is we used CMR for a specialty that we have now shifted to another consultant. So I think some of those costs won't be again next year.
What, the manual?
Yes.
Got it.
The CMR personnel, specialized.
Yeah.
Consultant attorney, we won't have that there, and it's in this fiscal year. So it wasn't a full 9,000, but then we had, a little bit left over from code update committee. That's not gonna happen. I tried to pull out true one-time projects that won't be reoccurring, and I think that 9,000 isn't okay to go down. It was really high, so this is more in line. The village clerk and the accountant, we have our own contractual lines, but most of the supplies that we use come out of shared services anyway. So I reduced both of those budgets a little bit, and then the contingent account for rounding. So with all of that, and I moved the expenses that we talked about to be paid by fund balance. The Fuss and O'Neill, specialized contract, traffic control, street signs, and wayfinding, the Kenworth payment, a plow.
Pause for a second. Sorry. The 9,000 for traffic control, does that include parking, updates on parking signage and wayfinding?
Yes.
We added an additional 3,300 to capture wayfinding crosswalk, okay.
So that is an increase, but because it's fund balance, the increase was okay. For snow removal, the plow, I did speak to Bugsy, and this 5,000 should probably be increased to 7,000, to pay to outfit the truck.
And that's, we're buying a new plow or moving a plow?
Buying a new plow and paying for the outfitting of the
Okay.
gas truck.
Yeah.
So Bugsy said all in, it's probably more like 7K. I moved the storm drain for factoring and the ban interest, all the fund balance, and that's about 140,000. So with all those changes, expenses are still greater than revenue by 11,000.
I'm sorry, trying to think of how to ask the question. Storm drain, but, and supplies, don't we have them in an annual line?
They are, they have been pulled out to fund balance in the past. It would probably sit better in operating, but right now I don't see how we can move that back to operating, but that can be a goal that I can work on next week.
Okay.
We've talked about, in the past that there's a lot of engineering due to FEMA storms. And I looked at engineering costs for the past 2 years, actually granular by what's considered storm damage and Fair Street projects versus everything else. And it's a significant amount. So in the current year, and we're only year to date through December 31st, 50,000 of, 34 of the engineering costs is for FEMA related stuff. And in the prior year, 53 was for the whole year FEMA related. So if we assume that the high cost of engineering next year, we continue FEMA engineering on the projects that still need to be designed, but are obligated or close to being obligated by FEMA. Because fish needs to be engineered, mountain and fish kills need finishing engineering. It's reasonable to think that the revenue that we get reimbursement from FEMA for these projects at 87.5% would cover some of the engineering costs so that we could add revenue to the budget for next year. Because FEMA is covering some of this increase in engineering. The engineering at 89,000 for the year is not just for non-reimbursable things. You know, it's FEMA and CHIPS. So if we, on average, recover some of it, I think that we can add 30,000 to the budget. You know, 87.5% is a significant amount to recover on reimbursement from engineering. And we've spent most of the engineering costs in the past year and the current year on these FEMA related projects that sit in the general fund. So I think that we can add up to 30,000, and then that would cover the deficit, and that would cover some other changes that need to be made in the general fund.
And the assumption that go into that, are that this FEMA's going to pay, time that is during the budget cycle, basically, right?
The village uses an accrual method of accounting, so even if it's expended next year and FEMA takes 2 years to pay, you know, I can accrue the money. Or in this case, FEMA has actually been prepaying some amounts. So even if it gets obligated and paid this year, then I would defer the revenue to next year so that the expense and the revenue, even though cash wise is not in the same fiscal year, books wise it is.
Did you see I followed up on the question you had about what happens if Fish Street, once we get the ground open, is tons more expensive than what was estimated? What do we do then? And the answer is, we can go back to FEMA. There is always or almost always a reconciling of what the estimate was and where it lands. Because who knows what's gonna happen, that one may involve working under the tracks.
And one of the FEMA projects, actually, we have been paid for within the past few weeks, and the engineering is not complete. So I would defer the revenue and then we start the year, you know, to pay for that engineering already. Thanks to Trustee Rosie for bringing that up and really pushing me to think about it. And it makes a lot of sense.
Start figuring it out.
Do you want to, any other changes that anybody would like to see for the general fund? Food scraps, we can cover I think it's roughly 3,000 for the year to keep the monthly fee going to continue the program at 250.
We don't have an accounting here for renegotiation of the lot lease at Hudson House, right? You don't have any numbers in for that? So that's another place that potentially drives revenue. Eliza, are you,
If we do that, we would probably need another meter kiosk down there, unless we wanted to just go straight park mobile. It isn't a hard project to do. So, there's like a civil engineer who lives across the street. He's like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can help you figure out how to
lay it out?
lay it out and make the most of that lot. So, it's not a huge project, but we would need, I would like to put a kiosk there within Park Mobile, but it's, that's up for discussion.
There is oh no, the boat club uses all app-based, right? They don't have a kiosk.
I'm not sure, but they do use Park Mobile and they have their own zone code.
Yeah. They're all. I mean, even if we didn't have money to buy a kiosk this year for there, we'd at least get some income coming in from the other spaces, and on new terms with Hudson House. But are you still willing to follow up with her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
I'm
think
sorry.
we need like legal help drawing up a new contract, if that contract is really old,
Yeah,
but yeah.
great. So I don't know what number to put in, but I think that's a revenue scenario there in some way.
While we're talking about kiosks, there's been talk about potentially another kiosk.
Mhm,
I would envision that that one-time purchase would be like a fund balance purchase.
mhm.
But that, if, assuming the current model, it's $900 annually to add that in. So if that's something the board really wants to consider, I'd like to build in,
You
you know,
mean
an annual fee.
the
The
fees?
not the credit card fees, like the service, have the cell service and have the kiosk operational. It's,
I mean, I think
$75 a month.
I think we should build in another one. Others?
Yeah, I think it's really very when we talk about trying to reduce the stress on the court and
Yeah.
it's like if we had more physical kiosks, and I would like two, but if one is all we can afford, so be it. But any amount added to Main Street will improve the chances that if service is down on the app or people are having trouble, they'll find a kiosk.
What, you guys had a call this week with someone, right, about a kiosk?
Yeah.
What were the numbers like on the purchase?
We're waiting for their estimate. They didn't get it back to us yet.
But you know that the service is about 900 a year.
If we purchase the models that we have, that's the only information that I have at the current moment. He was traveling this week. He said by the end of the week.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll know more about that, and at least part of that could be fund balance.
And I would like to have an actual just like fund balance conversation either next week
Yeah,
or
yeah.
following week. I want to prepare for that. I wanted to get some of this out for the tentative budget first. So based on the FEMA revenue changes, we could add in an annual service here. We talked, I don't know if we talked last week, but the website is another consideration that we need to
Aaron, yeah.
possibly change. There's 3,000 in the budget right now. It sounds like no matter the choice, it would have to go up a little bit.
And you guys have a call scheduled on Friday or something, right?
Oh, on April 2nd.
Oh, April 2nd. How much? We would like 5.
It's like 4,200 annually, and there might be a one-time fee. Yeah, we have to learn a little bit more about it, but it's more than the $3,000 there, so.
That's what
Maybe up to
part of it is
5.
like bells and whistles, right? Cause I think you gave a range of 4,200 to 6,000, right? Unless I'm really confusing it with another thing.
No, it was more specific. We got a proposal for it.
Okay,
And, yeah, I mean, I could, you saw the email, and I could
I just don't remember.
read it here if we need to, but, so $4,100 plus a $1,500 startup. So.
Well, that's
that-
better
that
than we
might be
thought.
up to 6,600.
What is, you have personal services executive sessions?
Any changes based on these things.
Oh, what we just talked about. Do we have any appetite, talked about it a bit last time, of metering the T on Lower Main Street? Or a portion? It's not the heavy lift that getting the resident parking set up in the Middle Village was, right? There's already residential parking.
Well, that's different though, because the way the residential parking is set up down there is that it's just like sprinkled in with the public parking.
Right.
And it prevents them from having to live with the limitation of whatever it is, 2-hour parking down there. But if you make certain areas metered parking only, then they don't have the flexibility of using those areas at all without paying as residents, just like on Main Street, so that would change, and then, I mean, you might have to potentially provide like resident-only parking areas down there, I don't know. Again, I don't feel comfortable with like making those proposals or recommendations without like a.
Well, for one thing, we need a
citizen
count of-
Studying it.
We need a count of permits down there for one thing. I mean, but it sounds like we're closer to closing now than we were when we entertained that question the first time.
Yes, so with the FEMA revenue and all the potential changes, we're about 3,000 revenue over expense. But
Okay.
there are some minor tweaks.
What about those spots that we talked about, like near Moo and like that?
The West Street, that's what I was referring to as the T.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking that T is in the tracks, I don't have other T.
I mean, it's low hanging fruit down there.
Yeah.
But it seems like at this point, we don't need to pull the trigger on that to balance the budget.
I would
And it's
agree with
something that we can,
I think it will be, based on these rough numbers, I've been keeping tally of the things we've been talking about. Be balanced, for tomorrow, for the tentative budget, to go up on the website. And then that doesn't mean that we can't make changes. Like I said, we just
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to make changes to both revenue and expense to keep it balanced. But we're much better off, and that the FEMA revenue makes sense, and that really helped. Does anybody have any other questions about the general fund, how things were calculated?
thank you for making the breakout on the parking numbers. I'm good, general.
Water and wastewater. So in the water and wastewater budgets as proposed right now, I'm gonna blur them a little bit. The water has a usage rate increase at about 5%. Wastewater has a usage rate increase and a flat rate increase at about 6% each. Those numbers are built in and the budget balances with those. So if the board would like to lower that or increase it, we would either have to cut expenses or there is always expenses to add. I thought maybe we could talk about those three as a whole and then we'll move to water flat rate on its own.
Okay.
So, a 5% increase on water usage rate is 17 cents per 1,000 gallons. 6% increase on usage rates in sewer is 13 cents per 1,000 gallons. And 6% on the flat rate is $5.30 per quarter. So $21 for the year. It's hard to predict usage, but on the flat rate side, on sewer, it's, less than $2 a month.
$21 per 1,000 gallons. Per year, is that, when you say $21 per year, it's
On the flat rate, the
on a
increase,
flat rate,
Mhm.
okay.
13 cents on the sewer side for the usage rate per 1,000 gallons, depending on the household.
Well, and I think it's important for you, Michelle, to lay out thinking about coming into dam repairs and building toward that large expense.
So then that would be largely funded by the water flat rate, which I haven't made any changes in the proposed budget right now. I think that's a big conversation we should talk about now. So water flat rate, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, I was talking about increasing and doubling or, 50% increase of the quarterly rate. Miscalculated, that it's quarterly, so it's times 4. So a good miscalculation. but one nonetheless. So essentially, if the water flat rate doubled every quarter, which is big, so it goes from 66 to 132 a quarter, that's roughly 388,000, which is the estimated bond payment. We won't actually know what that bond payment is until the dam work starts and we get bids and things like that. And that's expected, some heavy expenses to start next year. They're happening now, getting ready towards it. The thought is, like, Mayor said, moving towards that bond payment. And doubling it right now wouldn't be the answer, but I don't think a 5% increase here right now is the answer either. There is largely a lot of dam engineering that still needs to happen, professional services, land surveying. There's a lot of prep work to go into the construction. And historically, we've been paying for a lot of that out of fund balance. And right now it's in the budget to be paid out of fund balance. But if you increased a flat rate, significantly, so it's not a full double when the bond payment comes, that would pay for the engineering out of operating, and start to rebuild the fund balance for when an emergency project does come. There's that, like the aqueduct was paid in half by fund balance, half by borrowed money.
Good at the time we really needed it. So say that again, that would be going what % this year and what % next year?
To get to the 388, it's 100% increase. So what the board chooses to do this year, if you wanted to, phase it in, it's however what kind of percentage phase in. Essentially, it would be adding an extra $66 a month to 10, 20, 33, 44. I don't know.
So the quarterly rate, flat rate now is $56.25, right?
$66.20.
$66. Level of the information sometimes a little bit hard for me to follow. So $66.25 is what the rate has been. If we double that, the quarterly rate is $132.50. So that would be the annual amount people would pay on water, and for each household.
For each unit?
Right.
Mhm.
For
Quarterly,
each unit,
right?
but the annual amount.
No,
662.
quarterly.
So the quarterly amount would be 132, the annual would be
Okay, yeah.
662.
Because we've been talking about quarters, and I think we've already confused ourselves, so. So 66.25 times 4, the annual amount is $265 per unit. Additional.
Going from 66 to 86.
No, this would be going from 66.25 to 132.
Oh, the full doubling.
So each household each year would pay $265 additional on their flat rate water, no matter how much they use.
And go ahead, Laura.
Well, Michelle, I think you had thrown out the idea of this year going halfway as one option. So that would be at about $100 for 99.37. Is that right?
And that seems, to me, that seems more palatable, and but it gets us on our way to where we need to be. So that's example B. I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think that's a better place to do it, and then the usage rates, I think, is where we should raise the price more substantially. Just like you pay for what you use.
Well, the argument for raising flat is that it's predictable, right? You know what you're getting from
We can
household.
budget that way.
For a
Yeah.
bond
One
payment
year.
that wouldn't change over 30 years.
Yeah.
That's
But
a
the
good point.
use, and like, think about when we've had droughts, and your flat rate stayed the same, but your usage dropped way down. And we did make a reasonable jump on usage rates a couple of years ago. I think this is I personally think this is the time to focus on the flat to get us toward a big water project, and it's not unusual for municipalities to do that when faced with a big capital project.
And I do think that by going half now, in no perfect world is a grant gonna pay for the whole cost. But even if the village does get some additional funding here and there, you're not locked into that big rate. I mean, you could always change it, but I'd like the phase-in approach to start and then see where we are and where that payment's going to be. And for all we know, if something happens unexpectedly, this could be a 3-year phase-in, you know.
Right.
We'll have to reevaluate where the project is next year.
Can I ask, it's kind of to Eliza's point. Do we have any kind of, like exemptions or, assistance programs for seniors or low-income residents, or like something that, for some people, this is not a hit, and for some people, it's a really big hit. And, I know the electricity world better, where there's, through your utilities, you can apply for different kinds of discount programs. Like, is there something that we have, or do we know of any models like that? Or I would be happy to look into it. I just think that, like, to this point, we're about to double it. We're about to really increase, and that's a big deal for some people. And yet it's a cost we have to cover. I just think that it will hit different people differently.
I mean, it would work the same way that, I think it would work the same way that tax exemptions work. We'd still have to raise the amount and distribute it among fewer people.
Yeah.
But if there were, I mean, you'd have to, I don't know of any programs in place, and if you were wanting to do that on a local level, you'd have to structure out guardrails, and in the same way that we needed to do for the fire company exemption.
I have seen one assistance payment come in for a water and sewer bill,
Oh.
but I can't say where it's from, and I have only seen one. And it was more around COVID time. Cause I remember specifically we got it and everyone's like, what's this for? And then we went back and were able to back into it. But other than that, the checks are usually, or the payments are from the property owners, the tenants. I'm not familiar with any models of those type of exemptions or assistance programs at the local level, like a tax exemption. But that doesn't mean that they don't exist somewhere. I've never looked for them either.
Well, I'll dig a little bit. I mean, I think it might not be something that, yeah, I mean, if it requires some kind of code change or some, you know, if it's something like the fire company exemption, that takes a while to work on, but we're going into a period of like long, high water rates, and do a little bit of planning on it.
I mean, they're high for here. But comparatively, they're not high. It's to other municipalities. It's a big change
It's a
locally.
it's a meaningful jump for
Yeah,
some.
for sure, for sure.
I'm not questioning that we need to do.
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Be thoughtful about it. Okay, all around.
All right, so what else? It sounds like we have some consensus around the halfway jump.
It's a good number.
Tweets. Silent, yeah. And what else on water we need to look at, Michelle?
Is everyone else okay with the 5 to 6% on the other fees? On the two usages and the sewer flat? We've talked about in the past couple of years building in, some kind of percentage through the years as the cost of things go up. 5% and 6% help make the budget work. The sewer side, is 6%, the water side, the flat rate, with the increase of the flat rate, the usage rate isn't as important this year. If the board wanted to consider that.
On the water side, you said?
Yeah, to not raise the usage rate.
I actually feel the opposite. I mean, there's, you know, people who live at home and use very little water, and people with large families who might use tons, and so, you know, having the increase hit more proportionally by usage is just, I think, more of a fair way of distributing this.
I agree. There, you know, there are also people who run sprinklers all summer. Big properties running sprinklers.
Yeah, and that should, you know, that's a choice, and they should be hit more proportionally, generally speaking, than, you know, somebody living alone, or, you know, in a condo, but although the condos, I don't think they want
Well, on some level, they pay the water.
indirectly.
Yeah. So you would be, are you advocating for or against the 5.15 increase?
I'm advocating not to lower it.
Not to lower it, yeah. I mean, I think that it's just a reality that every year, everything gets more expensive on water and wastewater, and the village has not made good choices and left things flat for so long.
Well, the water break last night, that's an example.
Yeah.
That's where it's
Just stuff's breaking and we have to fix it, and it's more important that we continue to have water services.
Yes.
Yeah.
Than to like pinch pennies, so I think at a certain point, like, all villagers are gonna realize that this cost has to go up if we want to continue to have water services.
Yes.
But I would like to see in future years, because this increase is not going to cover everything that we will need in the future.
You would like to see which thing in future?
I would like in future years to consider more of a raise on the water
The
usage
use.
rate than a flat rate. We can take a communal punch this year, but in the future to repeat with the same flat rate it's a lot of money. And I think just everybody can understand better that the person running sprinkler all summer shouldn't pay more.
Well, and it is another mechanism for encouraging people to conserve.
Save water, because we got droughts.
Okay, so, are we saying yes then to 5.15 on the usage side this year? That we're giving Michelle a green light on that?
Yes.
That takes us to 347. Because it's the flip side.
5% on the water and 6% on the sewer usage and 6% on the sewer flat. Is that a consensus or thoughts?
Do you have the 6%? Oh, you do have it illustrated in the orange. And that's what you have built into the budget right now. Yep.
There's one other minor increase that is in the budget, but it's not illustrated. Every water meter now has an endpoint, and the endpoint, it cost, when it was implemented, 88 cents or 89 cents, and it's gone up to 91 cents. So it's like a 2-cent increase to pass on to the household. I bring it up because it is in the master fee schedule, the tech fee. It's $2.47 now, it'll have to go up 6 cents. So that is an administrative change.
That's a resolution.
To go up 6 cents?
Per device.
Got it.
Great. Quarterly, right?
Goes up 6 cents, become 8.
So, oh, sorry.
I'm just, would it be 8 cents or 6 cents?
It's 2 cents per month.
on the wastewater side, I can't remember where it landed in the conversation about the building enclosure. What numbers, Will found cost savings, but I don't know where it landed.
I'm not. For water and sewer as a whole, Matt has a working list of projects that he wants to accomplish in both plans. And so there's some money budgeted in for capital projects, and there's his wish list, and then there's preventative maintenance, and then there's the stuff that breaks and he can't
Yeah.
control. So sometimes with water and sewer, like we have some budgeted amount for pump station electrical work and for the generator building, like 44,000 total. But if something breaks, that pump station electrical work might have to, shift a little bit. So he has a master plan and he's been working on it and updating it, of short-term, middle-term, long-term, wish, need, things. He sent us a draft a couple weeks ago and which was like in the short term. And he said he's working on a larger one, and then we can share that with the board, and have the idea, to circle back every, couple months and be like, hey, where are we on this project, or where did that money shift to? Laura's suggestion. But generically speaking, the water and sewer have planned capital projects in them, small pumps, this and that, but it could shift at any time. The sewer and water funds are very operational driven. They are, just the operations of the plants. There's not a lot of wiggle room on the price of chemicals, the price of electricity, the things that you need.
And we're staying with the same sledge hauler, right? We just revised the sledge hauler not long ago. Am I remembering correctly? I feel like we just talked about that.
Yeah, it was like 3 months.
Anything else on water and sewer?
I do think it's worth noting on the sewer side, in 25-6, so the year that we're talking about, the sewer fund has 2 bond payments. We will make the last bond payment on one of those bonds. So that will free up some money, to hopefully get some pumps and things, repaired and upgraded.
That's next budget cycle though.
Yes, not the one we're discussing.
That'll
But good news for the future.
lessen the hit that we're gonna have to take next year.
All set?
Any specific water sewer questions?
No, thank you for modeling out like that. It was really helpful to have it presented that way.
Good job.
Color. Color helps. Yeah. Okay, so what we have left is approval of bill. It's a huge bill number.
I didn't sign. Have that other one.
There are specific things in this batch that we need to just point out why the batch is so high. You have it?
What it is?
Yeah.
Or what the items are, sure.
those high items?
So there's a $65,000 payment for our liability insurance, the second of 2 payments. There is a $33,000 bill in there for the installation of the underpass and bandstand cameras. $9,500 for the village hall boiler replacement and electric hot water heater installation.
That's reimbursed. That gets reimbursed. I'm guessing.
Should be reimbursed from Destiny now, but just the reason
Yeah.
why it's higher than normal. The.
You don't need to do every amount, just.
Just the big ones,
There's a typical royal
There's
bill in there,
royal
which is
bill.
20.
Okay. Oh, and, I did get a message from Jim Constantino today, saying that they completed the audit. And will get information to us. So we'll be able to move forward on that soon. Okay, so motion?
I make a motion to approve batch 7788 in the amount of $177,563.90.
Second.
Favor? Aye, thank you. Ask you a quick question before we adjourn. I got another signature signature form
Hmm.
related to NYSERDA tonight, I mean,
Not
related to the EV chargers
Yeah.
tonight? What is that? How is that different from what I got last time?
The first one was like the very initial proposal. This is signing the site plan.
For High Street?
For High Street.
Okay.
I don't think that would require another
I was surprised to get another
vote.
signature.
Yeah, we did it last time too. And then that's what gets sent to Central Hudson for the request for.
So it's a continuation
Yeah,
of that
same
same,
thing. Yeah,
we don't
it's
need
like-
to do another
I don't
vote,
think so.
okay. All right, make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Michelle.